TikTok has been a game changer for a lot of comedians. Short, clippable stand-up bits have helped rising stars go viral on the app. But some comedians say 90 seconds just can't do justice to their material. Today, how shorter jokes are changing the comedy landscape. I'm Emil Niazi, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. So the Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal has just wrapped up. And if you didn't make it out there, well, chances are still pretty good you've seen some clips pop up on TikTok or Instagram Reels. This kind of short, clippable comedy has really exploded in the past few years. I see it on my For You page all the time. And it's even been life-changing for some comedians. But, they're beholden to an algorithm, and ask any of these content creators, it's hard making constantly funny viral content that is less than a minute. So what are we losing and what are we gaining in this new era of comedy? I talked to two Canadian comedians about this. Andrea Jin was out in LA and John Cullen was in Vancouver. Here's our conversation. So, Andrea, I'm going to start with you because you have over 250,000 followers on TikTok. That is very impressive. And the platform has kind of changed your life, right? How has it paid off for you?
Well, it's just gotten my comedy out to a wider audience. Before, it was just, I was doing it in front of just whoever I'm able to get up in front of. Mm-hmm. But now it's able to reach people outside of Canada, people outside of America even. So I've been fortunate in that that's been the case.
What was the clip that really hit for you?
It's been a lot. I think the first one.
She's had a lot. She doesn't even remember.
It's actually all of them. They're all just watching over there.
It's really random. Like maybe the jokes about my grandmother or waxing or something like that. Yeah.
I love two wildly different things, hopefully. John, you're not even on TikTok. Why?
Well, I'm a 37-year-old man, so I think that's probably the first reason. I never really gravitated towards posting videos online. Couple reasons. I'm a teacher, so part of it, like right from the beginning, I've been doing comedy for 13 years. I tried to keep video of my comedy off of the internet. I never really wanted a parent to see me doing comedy and then be like, why is this guy teaching my children? So, and not that I'm like a super dirty comedian or anything, but you never know. So that was part of it. And then I think I just kind of missed the boat on it maybe. And my jokes are long. Like I'm kind of a storytelling comedian. My shortest joke is probably like 4 minutes long, which doesn't really suit for TikTok. So yeah, I think it's just like a combination of things where I just don't understand it and I am scared of it, I guess.
Okay, that's fair. That you're the exact right age demographic for those feelings, I think.
Yeah, it's certainly, I think, a pressure that a lot of comedians feel.
Mm-hmm. Andrea, I mean, I see it firsthand, right? Like my For You page is just like Matt Rife, that comedian who's sort of blown up in the last couple of years, where he's interacting with the audience, he's responding to hecklers, and his kind of crowd work seems so popular on TikTok and Instagram. In fact, here's a quick example of you doing some of that same crowd work.
Any immigrants here? Oh, yeah. Oh. Where?
From Australia.
Australia. Oh. I don't know why I initiate talking. I'm not like those comedians. They're like, oh, you're from Australia. Oh, you then. That's proud.
So just to paint a picture, Andrea, that's a slightly blurry video of you on stage. You are talking to a random person off screen who we can barely hear. So why is that kind of video doing so well on TikTok?
Oh, yeah, I think it's because there's like real people out there and it's like not prepared. So it feels really real and it feels like it's a unplanned moment because stand-up is so planned out. So I think it's the real rawness of it. People are maybe drawn to that. There's some like a lot of feel-good ones too. Like you said, Matt Rife, I saw one of his clips. It was just this single mom brought him cookies.
Cookies? Are you kidding me? Thank you so much. What's your name? Christina, you are so hot. Thank you so much. You're not married or anything? You bunch of idiots. Oh my God, you local morons not marrying this beautiful woman who makes great cookies.
All he was doing was just like complimenting her and being, and like kind of lusting after her in a way.
Right. Yes. He was complimenting. She was a beautiful lady who brought him cookies. And so, John, your latest comedy album is called Long Stories for No Reason. So I get that the appeal of a 90-second short clip is a bit lost on you. What do you think we're losing when we prioritize short form algorithm friendly content?
I think we're losing just a bit of the freedom. I think that comedians are feeling pressure to do jokes that fit on TikTok, that like they feel like, okay, shoot, I wrote this bit and it's 2.5 minutes long. How can I make it 1 minute long so that it can be on TikTok? Or how can I distill this down? And maybe that's a good joke writing exercise in some cases. But I think if you're a newer comedian coming up, you think, okay, all my jokes have to be a minute or less. I got to do crowd work at a lot of the shows I'm at because that's what people want to see from me. And again, you can do whatever you want. Like, I'm not on TikTok. I do pretty good. Like, I'm not saying that like you can't do it anymore. Like, you can if you want to, obviously. But yeah, I think that's what we're losing out on a little bit, is it feels a little bit more constrained than it used to be, or that comedians are trying to hit these targets that like maybe they wouldn't have had to be concerned about before, if that makes sense.
On the other hand, Andrea, you've spoken a bit about what it's done for you, how popular it is. What do you think we're gaining by having, this sort of unique format on TikTok and Instagram Reels?
I do agree with John, where I feel a pressure to do crowd work sometimes because I don't want to burn my material I don't want to post all my material on TikTok or Instagram. There's a lot to be gained, like being able to shape your own career. There's like more freedom to shape your own career and go the direction you want to go instead of pleasing a few decision makers.
And it's also led to a bit of a boom, right? Younger people are finding comedy. They're finding, even old comedians whose stuff has resurfaced. It's kind of created this new interest in the scene.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's it did contribute to a new comedy boom because people that come to my shows, they'll tell me, "Oh, I've never been to a comedy show. This was my first exposure because you told me to come because of your clips." And like, I guess we can't control like what happens. We don't know what the next trend will be. Like, this happened to be the next thing that prompted a comedy boom, and it did prolong this, art form. I'd rather it get carried on through TikTok than it dying, and people not going to stand up anymore. Now it's become as normal as like, going to the movies, going to dinner. So I like that it's helped in that.
Yeah, it has become, like you say, really commonplace now to go see comedy shows. And, John, 5 years ago, an hour-long stand-up special on Netflix or Comedy Central, or even playing Just for Laughs, as we mentioned off the top, that would be a huge win for a comedian. Is that still got the same cachet despite the TikTok boom?
I think so. Yeah. I think if you're a comedian, then you're getting a profile like that. I think that's still a big deal. Just for Laughs is maybe a little less, just because, when we talk about like the stand-up comedy boom in the 90s, like the stories you hear are people go to Just for Laughs and they were handing out development deals like they were candy. It was like you walk into the hotel bar and grab a development deal off the table. Just because you were there, certainly that doesn't happen anymore. I think it still has the same cachet. I just think that comedy is in its MySpace era. Like, I used to play in bands, and this happened with MySpace as well, where, in the past, it was, if you were a band, you could make it big by having the right person see you. The right A&R person sees you on the right night. They give you a bunch of money. You make a record. It could potentially lead to fame, whatever. And then MySpace got big and record labels stopped trying because they were like, oh, well, you make your own audience on the internet, and then we'll just pour gasoline on that fire. And I think that's what's happening with comedy right now. Is that good or bad? I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. Like, I don't know. But that's where I see it right now, is that it tends to be Netflix and Comedy Central and whatever. They're not seeking you out anymore. You just get big and then they give you a thing. And yeah, it really reminds me of MySpace.
Mm-hmm. That's a good analogy and one that probably not everybody listening will get. Andrea, what do you what do you think about what he just said about this idea of gatekeeping? Like, you know, yes, TikTok has given a platform to younger, newer, lesser known comedians, allowed them to blow up. But at the same time, has it just handed the keys over to a new group of gatekeepers? Kind of what John was alluding to. What do you think is the case?
Yeah, well, I think it's always good to change things up because I've watched, you know, people get passed over that are very talented, but they just did not fit the taste of whoever was making decisions at the time. So that's a shame always. Like they're very good and people really like them and laugh at their comedies, but just because of that, they can't, you know, be on Comedy Central. They can't go to Just for Laughs. They can't like do all this stuff that other people that fit more of the taste of the decision makers can do. So that creates, you know, having your own platform creates an opportunities for those people that deserve to also like reach the people that would really love them. I'm glad that it's creating more opportunities for people. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I definitely, I see the cons. I see the pros. It's not perfect.
No, nothing on social media is perfect. It's impossible. You can't please everyone. Mm-hmm. John, you know, TikTok can really accelerate a person's career. I mentioned Matt Rife. Can you think of any Canadians, obviously besides Andrea, who
I was
took off?
She's sitting right here.
Who took off thanks to the app?
I think one of the prime examples from Vancouver as well is Darcy Michael. You know, a very funny stand-up comedian who is now known as one half of the comedy duo Darcy and Jer. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, like I've been performing comedy with Darcy forever. You know, I was one of his openers back in the 10s, and he's a great example of kind of what Andrea was saying about the sort of shifting gatekeepers, because he actually had a development deal with CTV to make a sitcom about his life as a married gay man, and his husband has a kid from a previous marriage. So the sitcom was going to kind of be about, you know, these two gay dads and they're raising a daughter together, etc. And they made a pilot and it got rejected by the network and it never got aired. So then Darcy picked up TikTok and started doing a bunch of the sort of sketches and scenes and stuff that he had envisioned being in the sitcom, but just doing it in his own home with his husband.
You gonna help me unload the truck?
Honey, I just spent 35 days in a truck with you. I love you dearly, but today I love my plants more.
And now they're massive. They're just about to do a North American tour. They're doing the UK and Europe and Australia as well, I believe. And Jer was like not a comedian at all. He was like Darcy's corporate husband. Like he used to have like a business job, and then their TikTok got so big he was able to quit his job. Jer's first ever stand-up comedy show was at a sold-out Vogue Theater in Vancouver for 1,200 people.
Amazing.
So that's a clear success story, and like I said, kind of illustrates Andrea's point that sometimes it's a good thing when the quote-unquote gatekeepers or decision makers shift, because then now all of a sudden you've got this, you've got these two extremely talented people getting the platform that maybe they deserved all along.
Well, this is such an interesting conversation, and I don't know if it's changed your mind, John, at all about joining TikTok, but it's changed mine. Andrea, John, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Andrea Jin and John Cullen are both comedians. We reached Andrea in LA and John in Vancouver. I'm Emil Niazi sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. You're listening to Commotion. I'm so excited about this next topic because we're talking about sharks. Shark movies are such a staple of summer. You know, Jaws may have been the first blockbuster, set the bar really high, but since then, the sharks have just gotten bigger and the plots have just gotten wilder. And the latest opens tomorrow, featuring a massive prehistoric megalodon.
That's the biggest Meg I've ever seen.
Biggest Meg anyone's ever seen.
That's the apex predator.
Everybody make it to the station! Go! We never seen this before. They hunted in packs.
What's happening in that trailer? Who cares?
It doesn't matter.
It's the trailer for Meg 2. For more on that and why shark movies are such a thing, we have Matt Hart here in the studio with us. Matt, thank you for talking about sharks.
I could do this all day. I love sharks so much.
Okay, before we get to Meg 2, let's start with a clip from the original, the OG shark movie.
There is a creature alive today who has survived millions of years of evolution. Without change, a mindless eating machine. It will attack and devour anything. It is as if God created the devil and gave him jaws. Jaws. See it before you go swimming.
Why is that still terrifying
it still
me?
gives me chills. Yeah, it's amazing.
What was it about Jaws that you think set such a high bar?
So I think, first of all, let me say this about sharks. My logical side says they're a huge part of the ecosystem. We should preserve them, yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
My gut says they're from hell and the ocean is a monster soup.
Yes.
So, like, we all have this primal fear. It was perfectly exploited by Jaws. And so that's why it's so important. And also, it's based on a true story. So Jaws was actually written loosely around this idea. There was a series of attacks on the Jersey Shore. 4 people killed in one day.
Mm-hmm.
A surfer was eaten. And then it did the unthinkable, went upstream into fresh water, up a river, and killed 2 boys. And then someone jumped in to save them, killed him. So the reason I bring this up is because everyone during these attacks thought they were joking, the people being attacked. They were like, oh, they're just goofing around.
Yeah.
People weren't afraid of sharks yet. After Jaws, everyone's terrified.
And, you know, then it became a summer blockbuster tradition.
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen? How are we still, you know, wanting to terrify ourselves before we, you know, spend 2 months in the water?
Well, it's because it's when you're at your most vulnerable. It's when you're relaxing. And the idea of living this kind of idyllic lifestyle when then this awful monster comes in, destroys it all. It's such a paradox that I think people are just terrified of that.
So it's pretty much Shark Week every week at my house because I have a 5-year-old who is obsessed with sharks, loves them, defender of sharks.
Yep.
But it's not just shark movies. You know, the concept of Discovery Shark Week, if you're familiar with that,
Yeah,
I'm
of course,
sure you are by now. That's been going on since 1988.
Yeah.
What is it about sharks that we find so endlessly captivating?
It's a chicken or egg for me. It's like I think we're just inherently afraid of the unseen beneath us when we're in the water. But then Jaws terrified a generation. I remember kids being afraid to have baths or swim in their pools because of Jaws. And so people are like fascinated by it, but also terrified by it. And I think people like to be scared.
I think people do like to be scared.
It's like a visceral kind of thrill. And summer, like I said, is kind of this fun time of year. And then you inject it with this terror and it just freaks everyone out.
There's a pretty direct line between Jaws and this new film that we talked about a little bit, Meg 2, The Trench. Here's a little clip from that.
We're detecting increased aquatic activity 25,000 feet deep in the trench. It's an ancient ecosystem untouched by man. Whatever is down there is trying to make its way to the surface.
Okay, we can be honest here, you and I. These movies are not known for their rich, nuanced plots, right?
Yeah,
it's not going to win Best Screenplay at the Oscars anytime soon. But based on that trailer, what can you tell us about what this movie's about?
Okay, here's the thing, though. The Meg 2 is actually directed by a critically acclaimed, brilliant director, Ben Wheatley.
Ben Wheatley. I love Ben Wheatley.
Yeah, he did Kill List, a lot of great film, Sightseers. So they really took a risk, this franchise that's kind of ridiculous. They took a chance on him, and he's taken a chance on this franchise. So it's kind of this mutual where you've got a really creative person working with this kind of cheesy franchise. It's like Chanel designing a pair of Crocs. You know what I mean?
I would love to see that.
Yeah, that might happen. So I think that's why it's exciting. And every good shark movie now knows you're not going to outdo Jaws. So they just literally jump the shark and kind of try to go bigger and crazier, whether it's a tornado of sharks like Sharknado, or the Meg, they're just like, let's make them giant. And so they already did that. And the second one, they're like, let's make a bunch of them. And so I think that they've realized their place here and that it's going to be actually, I think it'll be a lot of fun. You know, it's a giant sharks, a whole bunch, some giant squid even, they've included. So.
And you don't care that it looks like a claymation, rudimentary, something that my 5-year-old, as I mentioned, could have made. You're psyched for this.
You know, I can kind of, I have to suspend my disbelief during this kind of movie. It's like turn your brain off kind of movie. Sit in the theater. It's a popcorn movie. It's not supposed to be, like, it knows what it is, you know?
I do appreciate that, especially in the summer. And you mentioned Ben Wheatley, like he made High Rise, Kill List, some really great films that I have, put on my top 20. Why do you think someone like him would be drawn to a project like this?
I think the best creatives are risk takers. So for him, this is a challenge because I'm sure he has notes coming at him from everybody saying like, no, do this. But he's maybe trying to do something different from Kill List, which is amazing. If you haven't seen it, see it. But I think it's a challenge for him. And a good director likes a challenge.
You don't think we're running out of shark material?
We have a long time ago. Once the shark tornado and Sharktopus, and there's a great documentary out right now called Sharksploitation, and it's about this phenomenon of just going crazier, sharks in space, all this kind of stuff. And we ran out a long time ago. And I think the only really scary shark movie since Jaws has been Open Water.
Open Water. Well, I wanted to ask you, aside from Jaws, what's your favorite shark movie? What's the shark movie everyone has to see that's not the classic?
So it's got to be Open Water. So if you don't know about this, it's a couple that goes diving and they get forgotten by their tour guides and have to live in open water, just getting kind of pecked at by sharks for days.
Okay, Open
it's like
Water.
Found footage style.
I'm going to put that on my list. Maybe I won't watch it with my son.
Not before you go to the beach.
Matt, thank you for wading into these shark-infested waters with us.
Happy to do it.
Matt Hart is a regular here on Commotion. He's also a member of the band The Russian Futurists.
Too many things to be afraid of. So many ways to become obsolete. All of the times I drew it in my mind. The worries consuming me.
That's a great song, a great way to welcome in this Wednesday. That's Isque with Sure to Come. And that's it for the show today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for talking about sharks. I love talking about sharks. I'm Emil Niazi, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. Thank you for listening to Commotion.